So as I promised a few days ago when we hit 10,000 subscribers, one last extra video we're going to do is I'm going to take this political compass test more for fun to see where I land. You guys are welcome to take it as well. It's just politicalcompass.org. Let me know where you land in the comments. So we're going to jump into this. And again, thank you for 10,000 subscribers and happy Father's Day to those in my viewers. So it says, before taking the test, please note that this isn't a survey and these aren't questions, they're propositions. To question the logic of individual ones that irritate you is to miss the point. Some propositions are extreme and some are moderate. That's how we can show whether you lean towards extremism or moderation on the compass. Your responses should not be overthought. Fair warning, I'm probably going to overthink them. It's in my nature, and some of them are intentionally vague. Their purpose is to trigger reactions in the mind, measuring feelings and prejudices rather than detailed opinions on policy. Just a few propositions to start with concerning, no less, how you see the country and the world. If economic globalization is inevitable, it should primarily serve humanity rather than the interests of transnational corporations. I strongly agree. I think corporations in general should favor the people, should favor humanity rather than the profit margin. So if it's going to be one economy taking over the world where these massive corporations are kind of the ruler of that throughout different nations, it should definitely favor all the people in those nations. I would always support my country whether it was right or wrong. Strongly disagree. If there was one past strongly disagree, I would select that. To say you agree with this would be to support America during slavery, during dropping bombs on different countries, during all these horrible events, which, I mean, it's a roll of dice where you're born. You shouldn't just support the country regardless of what it's doing. You should prop up the rights and fight against the injustices. No one chooses their country of birth, so it's foolish to be proud of. Hey, that's kind of what I was just saying in the last one. I definitely strongly agree with this. You shouldn't be any more proud of where you lucked out and were born than anybody else. To say, haha, I'm American and this and that to other countries is silly and kind of childish in my opinion. Our race has many superior qualities compared with other races. Strongly disagree. I don't think the race is what gives you superior qualities. It's upbringing, it's intelligence, it's different things that can be varied throughout the different races. And if anything, the variation of races in America is what props up America to be great. And the fact that some people want it to be like a white nationalist country is one of the worst things in the country. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. I would say I probably disagree. I could see times where if two people are both the enemy of someone that they could come together to fight against that, but that doesn't make them your ally necessarily. A good comparison I think that I can think of for this is Candace Owens and Brianna Joy Gray just did a podcast together where they related over the hate and censorship they've gotten due to criticizing Israel. However, Brianna Joy Gray and Candace obviously aren't going to be allies, where Candace is like anti-vaccine, pro-Trump, pro-corporation, anti-anything left, while Brianna Joy Gray wants more leftist policies enacted. Military action that defies international law is sometimes justified. Strongly disagree. Like this, with what's going on with Israel and Gaza. They're breaking international law. They're indulging in genocide. These kinds of things. International law was created for a reason, and is to keep reins on these nations that are more powerful than other nations from asserting that authority over them to just get whatever they want. And this would kind of create a slippery slope where the biggest, more economically strong countries are just imposing their will on every other country, which, I mean, America already kind of does that, so I'm just saying. There is now a worrying fusion of information and entertainment. I would say disagree. I'm kind of on the line with this one. I think at some points, yes, but I think that the more entertaining that you can portray information, as long as you're staying good faith and you're not like using misinformation, it's helpful, it's beneficial. But then when you look at someone like Trump, who is like very entertaining, and because of how entertaining he is, some people put him into a position where they get their information through him, that can be dangerous. So that's kind of where I say I would walk the line on this one, but I would lean towards disagree. Now the economy, we're talking attitudes here, not FTSE index. People are ultimately divided more by class than nationality. I do agree. I think that racism is a symptom of classism, but it exacerbates classism. Like race, black people in America were put in poor classes, which exacerbates the issues they feel due to class. But that's not to say that just because you're black, you inherently see like more of a struggle than a very poor white person. A lot of your struggles are going to be similar. Some of the injustices you may face may be different. But again, I think ultimately it comes down to class more than nationality or race or anything like that. Controlling inflation is more important than controlling unemployment. I would say, that's a good one. I probably disagree. Some inflation is necessary for the economy to grow. And as long as wages are outpacing inflation, I don't think inflation is a major issue. But I think that if the unemployment went out of control, we would lose GDP. We would lose probably a lot more than just if inflation went up, where there's a lot more safeguards that you could put in place, from the Fed to different things like that you could enact to kind of bring it back down and cool it back off to around 3% where you want it to be. Because corporations cannot be trusted to voluntarily protect the environment, they require regulation. Strongly agree. Corporations would do whatever they can to maximize their profit. They wouldn't put the environment first. They wouldn't put people first. They wouldn't put anything. Quality, the baker, if we didn't have regulations on bakers putting poison in bread, and then putting poison in their bread could allow them to produce it for half the cost, the baker would then poison his bread. It's through these regulations that corporations are just any bit forced to think of anything outside of profit margin, which is the only thing they would value otherwise. From each according to his ability to each according to his need is fundamentally a good idea. This is, my entire worldview, pretty much how I think society should run. Those with the ability should be contributing what they can according to their ability to go to those according to their need. That is how society works the best. The freer the market, the freer the people. Strongly disagree. How free are the people who don't have the opportunity to act? This is the age-old positive liberty versus negative liberty, right? If you're put in a completely free market, let's say you're just dropped off in the middle of the wilderness where you can just go and do whatever, how free are you to do literally anything? If you don't have the money for it, if you don't have this, if you're in just a society where everything is controlled by free market barter system, how free is the person with no money? They're not free to do anything. If they have to make money to pay for their house, how free are they without shelter? How free are they without a job? How free are they without a level of income? Freedom is in the ability or the opportunity to act equally, right? Not in just removal of restrictions. And sometimes it comes down to needing to regulate the market to make it more free and equal for everyone within that market. It's a sad reflection of our society that something as basic as drinking water is now a bottled, branded consumer product. Strongly agree. And it's even a sadder reflection that one company can own 7 different branded water bottles that they brand differently to give you an air of variety, when really it's just one faceless billionaire profiting off the same water that he charges different price points for. Land shouldn't be a commodity to be bought and sold. I strongly agree with this one. Who owns the land? How do you dictate who owns land? Is it who got there first? Because then Native Americans own America. Is it who has enough money to buy the land? Well, then can somebody with more money than you come and just buy the land that you're on, buy your house because they can outbid you for it? At any point, you're going to see people where they have restrictions on saying, oh, land should be a commodity, because you can't dictate who owns it. So land should be, we are the inhabitants of the land, right? We are the people who are on it. We should be tending to it. We have custodianship of it, but we don't own it any more than anybody else. So the fact that it's a profit vehicle is what leads to the massive amounts of homelessness that we see in America. It is regrettable that many personal fortunes are made by people who simply manipulate money and contribute nothing to their society. Strongly agree. Again, it is sad that so many people, and they say the lie that's told is, oh, capitalism is what makes people want to work. It's the market, baby. It makes you want to go and chase wealth, when most people who are poor never get rich, and most people who are rich never work. They don't contribute to society. They want to get rich enough to where they can quit working and put their money into stocks so they can make all of their livelihood off of your livelihood and your hard work, while they just turn lots of money into lots of money, where they never redistribute it back into society. They're never putting it for anything that helps or contributes to society. They're just sitting on it so they can then pass it down to their kids, who dice roll, just luck into that, while other kids are born into poverty. Protectionism is sometimes necessary in trade. Yeah, I definitely think there should be protections in trade from, for instance, smaller countries trading with bigger countries. Again, bigger countries could just forever impose their will in ways that the smaller countries didn't have a way to fight back on if we didn't have some sorts of protections. The only social responsibility of a company should be to deliver profits to its shareholders. Strongly disagree. The social responsibility of a company should be to the environment, to its consumers, to its workers, to so many people before the shareholders. You shouldn't be able to buy your way into a company and then have more of a say in that company than the people whose labor is literally creating the profits that company receives, or the people who are directly affected by that company, thus the consumers in the neighborhood. I mean, it's really silly that somebody with no ties to a company can just invest $1 million into it, and then now they're making all the decisions with no experience, no firsthand effect from what happens to the company. If it goes under, it's just one company in their portfolio. They can just move on to the next, while there's hundreds of workers whose entire livelihood depend on that business succeeding. The rich are too highly taxed. Strongly disagree. The rich are not taxed enough. They are taxed less percents of their income than the working class. And that is one of the reasons why we have such lack of funding for things like roads, schools. That's why we don't have universal health care, universal child care, like tax-based housing. If the rich just paid a fair share of their income, we could have so many more things without having to try to draw that from people who are paying to survive, pretty much, while there's people who, again, are just sitting on massive amounts of wealth that is never taxed. They're getting massive gains through capital interest that is never taxed. They're using the stock market, which isn't taxed. We should be taxing all of these things. We should be taxing people who hold on to their wealth and hoard it, people who hoard properties. And if we did that, the people who actually have to work to make a living wouldn't need to be taxed. Those with the ability to pay should have access to higher standards of medical care. Strongly disagree how medical care should work. And this is an old story, a tired story on this channel. I've spoken this many times. How private insurance works is every single individual private insurance takes all the money it gets from the people who have that private insurance, and they put it into a pool. So there's a bunch of little pools for all the different private insurance companies, and those in that insurance company then, throughout, depending on what level of paywall that they're paying to get care, they're allowed to take so much from it if needed for care, which leaves less money for everyone in there. There's less money in the overall pool. Again, how much you're paying in decides how much you can take out, and it would be much more efficient, and there would be more money available for all if all those little pools were just absolved into one big pool that everybody with the ability pays into, and those with the need took from. Again, back to the quote that I said defines a lot of how I see society. Government should penalize businesses that mislead the public. Strongly agree. You shouldn't be able to lie about health things. You shouldn't be able to lie about quality. You shouldn't be able to lie about anything. You should represent your product as is. But again, that's another trick for corporations to profit off of. A genuine free market requires restrictions on the ability of predator multinationals to create monopolies. Yeah, I mean, we shouldn't let corporations just go overseas to take control of other corporations to then bleed down and really monopolize. Like, for instance, the company that owns Subway also owns like 6 of the top 13, I don't remember exactly off top, 5 or 6 of the top 10 or 12 sandwich making companies. So it's really a monopoly. Like Coke and Pepsi and all these other little soda brands are all owned by the same company. These are monopolies that just have a kind of air of variety through different brands that are all owned by one overarching company, and that should absolutely be done away with. Take a look at some of your personal social values. Abortion, when the woman's life is not threatened, should always be illegal. Strongly disagree. I think that up until personhood, which to me is defined by the capacity to deploy a conscious experience, which is around 20 to 28 weeks. You could call it 20 weeks to be safe. Up until then, I see absolutely no problem with abortion. After that, I think the waters get a little more muddy. It's open for more debate. But even then, I think in life, in case of the mother's life, fetal anomalies, like sexual assault victims, I think that there's plenty of exceptions that could be had after, but definitely up until 20 weeks. I don't think there's any reason to apply protections to a non-person that we wouldn't apply to other people, like an end-of-life care, right? Where someone's on a machine and they lose the conscious experience, but like the machine is keeping them alive in terms of their body working in an orchestrated manner, and that machine is bleeding tens of thousands of dollars from a family. Nobody's going to call them murderers for unplugging the machine, but all of a sudden you're then a murderer for not wanting to inhibit a fetus and let it grow in you for 9 months and possibly hinder your health, hinder your finances, all these other things. And when it's not even a person, I don't think it should be given the rights of a person, let alone the whole argument of you really can't be given the rights granted by law when you're not entered into a society. A fetus is not in our society, thus it doesn't have any rights legally speaking either. All authority should be questioned. Strongly agree. Fuck authority. And if somebody is imposing authority, you definitely should ask why. Absolutely. An eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. I strongly disagree with this. I don't think that just because someone does something to you that you are then allowed to do it back to them. That is just kind of heinous, and it opens for a slippery slope of just bad things to happen. Taxpayers should not be expected to prop up any theaters or museums that cannot survive on a commercial basis. Strongly disagree. I think if the community wants it, if it benefits the community, there are social benefits to things. There's not for museums or theaters, but there's environmental benefits to some things like parks and such. There's a multitude of different benefits that these things can provide to a community, that the way I see it is, as long as a community wants it, the taxpayers should then prop it up. You're not forced to live in a certain community. You're not forced to live in America. If you don't like taxes, you can go somewhere where taxes don't exist. Surprise, surprise, taxes exist everywhere because taxes are a necessity for a society to survive in the industrial era. Schools should not make classroom attendance compulsory. I disagree. I think that if you're a student in the school, you should be. I don't think that to be said, I don't think everyone should be made to like attend a certain school, like a public school or whatever. But if you are going to attend a school, I do think that there is a certain level of attendance that should be expected. And I know that when attendance is made compulsory, it raises like grades and other things. It raises attendance for kids. So yeah, I probably disagree with that, but not strongly. All people have their rights, but it is better for all of us that different sorts of people should keep to their own kind. That's insane. This is insane. No, strongly disagree. Good parents sometimes have to spank their children. Strongly disagree. Spanking is a punishment. You don't unteach maladaptive behaviors through punishment. You teach it through positive and negative reinforcement, the giving of things that they want or losing access to things that they would want, right? If you spank a kid, the only thing you're going to teach them is to be afraid of you. So in a situation where they don't feel like they have to be afraid of you, they're just going to go out and do it again, right? Like if they cuss at home and every time they cuss, you hit them, they might be too scared to cuss when they're around you at home, but when they go out in public and they're at school and they know, oh, mom's not going to find out, they're just going to go cuss, because you're not at all teaching them, one, why that behavior is bad. You're not teaching them replacement behaviors that they should be doing instead, and you're not really giving them that sense of being reinforced for doing what's right. You're just teaching them fear, which also will cause a lot of social issues between your guys' relationship, but I digress. It's natural for children to keep some secrets from their parents. I mean, I strongly agree. I think that if you expect your kid to tell you everything in their life, like you're a control freak, you know what I mean? Like just because they're your kid doesn't mean they're yours, like your property, and they need to tell you every single thing they do. Possessing marijuana for personal use should not be a criminal offense. I'm sorry for these ads that keep popping up on these questions. Yeah, I don't think that marijuana should be for personal use should be a criminal offense, and I that's one of the things I support Biden for pardoning thousands of people for every year. I think it's silly to criminalize something so juvenile, and also it leads to a lot of disproportionate arrests between black and the white communities who use weed at the same rates, yet black people are arrested 4 times as likely. Or is 4 times likely to be arrested. The prime function of schooling should be to equip the future generation to find jobs. Strongly disagree. It should be to raise an intellectual generation. Like it should be to get them more indulged in intellectual activities, because this kind of wide variety of being educated is what we should want in our workforce. Not just, okay, we're going to have you go to school 40 or 5 days a week, 40 hours a week, so you're ready for a 40-hour work week 5 days a week when you get out, so you can work and slave yourself away at a factory. It's kind of a slave mentality. I think it's kind of gross. People with serious inheritable disabilities should not be allowed to reproduce. Strongly disagree. That's insane. The most important thing for children to learn is to accept discipline. Strongly disagree. They should learn how to feel their emotions, how to exhibit their emotions, how to control themselves. They should learn like educational things. They should learn how to apply themselves in different settings. There's a multitude of things that they should learn outside of accepting discipline. There are no savage and civilized people. There are only different cultures. Strongly disagree. Some of these questions, man, are crazy. Those who are able to work and refuse the opportunity should not expect society's support. I'm going to disagree with that. I don't think anyone should be able to work, but I think that if you have the ability, that you probably then if you have the ability, you should be contributing to those who don't have the ability but have the need. But that being said, I don't think everyone has to work. And something that is found in different societies is when you don't force people to work, they tend to still want to do things to take their time up with. And those things, 9 out of 10 times, still line up with things that contribute to society. When you are troubled, it's better to not think about it, but to keep busy with more cheerful things. No, you're not addressing the problem in any way there. It is better to understand why you feel that way, what you could do to feel differently, and to then apply those things to make yourself feel better. So you're not just avoiding the problem, you're dealing with it. First-generation immigrants can never be fully integrated within their new country. Strongly disagree. A lot of the way society is currently set up, it is hard for first-generation immigrants to be integrated with their new country, but that is not to be said that they can't. I mean, they can do anything that anybody else can do. What's good for the most successful corporations is always ultimately good for all of us. No, what's good for corporations is like what we see now, trying to raise their prices, blame it on anything else when it really just comes down to corporate greed, refusing to raise wages because that hurts profit margin, drilling oil, doing things that hurt the environment. 9 out of 10 times, what's good for very successful and large corporations is horrible for the working class and people. Just saying. No broadcasting institution, however independent its content, should receive public funding. Strongly disagree. There should be some publicly funded broadcasting institutions. I'll disagree. I'll strongly disagree because some should definitely be publicly funded. I don't think all, but there definitely should be some for sure. Our civil liberties are being excessively curbed in the name of counterterrorism. Is this like what? Because some things are getting censored on social media? I disagree with that. Not strongly disagree. A significant advantage of a one-party state is it avoids all the arguments and delay that progress in a democratic political system. I strongly agree with that. I'm just saying. And the thing is you can still have democracy within a one-party state. You can still have different leaders under that one party. You can still have votes. You can still do all of these things. And one of the biggest problems with a two-party system is you're always going to have differing ideas. And it could come to a situation like we see now where MAGA literally just doesn't want to play ball and let Biden have any wins in an election year. So nothing has been passed for the last year and a half. And it's so strictly because one party doesn't want to give wins to the other party. Although the electronic age makes official surveillance easier, only wrongdoers need to be worried. I agree, but obviously anything can be overused or used for bad, so not strongly agree. I did click agree. Okay. Because, obviously there's some worries to be had, but I do agree with that in sentiment. The death penalty should be an option for the most serious crimes. Strongly disagree. I think rehabilitation should always be the goal. And in situations where rehabilitation can't be the goal, then isolation should be the goal. But I don't think that anyone in society should be able to play God and decide who deserves to live or not. In a civilized society, one must always have people above to be obeyed and below to be commanded. Strongly disagree. I think that everyone on an equal playing field with a sort of like a vanguard, the more politically adept people in a society making decisions, yes, but you don't need the owner class putting their boots on the necks of the working class for a society to work functionally. That's just a capitalist lie. Abstract art that doesn't represent anything shouldn't be considered art at all. Strongly disagree. That's just stupid. Art is subjective. In criminal justice, punishment should be more important than rehabilitation. Strongly disagree, and all the statistics and data disagrees as well. Rehabilitation works 20 times better in terms of recidivism, which is the likelihood you will recommit a crime. Rehabilitation is more effective in reducing that. It is a waste of time to rehabilitate some criminals. I guess I'll agree. I think in some instances, sexual predators, things like that, already habitual, murderers, some people, like I said, where rehabilitation isn't the goal, isolation should be. The business person and the manufacturer are more important than the writer and the artist. Strongly disagree. The business person and the manufacturer just create commodities that are only there because the consumer wants them. So if anything, and that kind of Venn diagram, I guess, I'm blanking on the word. And that the consumer is more important than the businessman and the manufacturer, whereas the writer and the artist speak to the people, speak for the people, while the business person and manufacturer are just providing for the people, right? Which, again, they wouldn't be there without the people. But writers and artists would be. They are the people. Mothers may have career, but their first duty is to be homemakers. Wow, that's insane. I think mothers' first duty is whatever they want it to be. In some relationships, it'll be homemakers. In other relationships, it'll be having a career. Sometimes the father will be the homemaker. Sometimes the father will have a career. It varies by relationship. You can't just set a standard because of your sex. Almost all politicians promise economic growth, but we should heed the warnings of climate science that growth is detrimental to our efforts to curb global warming. I completely agree. Profit should not trump everything else, and it is a sad reflection of human life that it currently is. Making peace with the establishment is an important aspect of maturity. I would have to say I do agree with this. When I was younger, I used to be a lot more rebellious and a lot more anti-establishment, and there's plenty of parts of the establishment in terms of like what the establishment is today that I don't agree with, but reform, not rebel, right? That's, I think, the biggest part of maturity. Astrology accurately explains many things. I strongly disagree. I think that I believe in souls, right? So if you're going to believe in souls, which I think are connected to the universe, I think where the stars and moon are can have some play on your personality. But I think that like following horoscopes, saying, oh, I have to be this way because I'm a Gemini for instance. But, you know, saying I have to be this way because I'm a Gemini, I think all that's false. So yeah, strongly disagree. You cannot be moral without being religious. Strongly disagree. Some of the most immoral people are religious, and they use their religion to justify their immorality. And then again, it's like in every religion you look at, you can see plenty of immoral things. Like that's just completely false. Charity is better than Social Security as a means of helping the genuinely disadvantaged. This strongly disagree, and that's horrendously false. There's nothing you could point to even kind of say that's true. Social Security keeps 2/3 of senior citizens out of poverty. Charity doesn't do that. And if it was optional, if it was all led down to the goodwill of billionaires and corporations, you can bet that the impoverished community, the elderly community, all of these people would be fucked. They would be absolutely fucked. Some people are naturally unlucky. Disagree, I guess. Like, you could be naturally unlucky in that you were born into poverty. Or I guess I'll just agree. You can be naturally unlucky in that you're born into poverty, and that you're born in a more impoverished country, that you're not born into the same situations that rich kids are. But I think that to some respect, hard work can trump luck or the lack of. It is important that my child's school instills religious values. Strongly disagree. It is important that my school does not instill any religious values. Sex outside marriage is usually immoral. Strongly disagree. Sex outside marriage is fucking radical, brother. We should all do it. A same-sex couple in a stable, loving relationship should not be excluded from the possibility of child adoption. I strongly agree. And there's lots of data on the matter that shows that children adopted by same-sex couples have much better outcomes than children who are left in like the foster care system, left in group homes and things like that. There's plenty of data that shows children raised in same-sex couples. I did an interview with somebody on this where children raised in same-sex couples do better educationally than even children from different sex couples. They fare just as well in employment opportunities. Trying to say that, oh, just because you're a same-sex couple, you can adopt children is horrendously homophobic. Pornography depicting consenting adults should be legal for the adult population. I agree. I mean, it shouldn't be like glamorized, but making it illegal is a bit crazy if you ask me. No one can feel... Oh, I skipped one. We cut out on that last question, so I'll start over from there. What goes on in a private bedroom between consenting adults is no business of the state. I strongly agree. If it's consenting, if you're adults, I mean... What's the government going to come in and do? Guys, missionary only. You better flop back over, get off those knees. No one can feel naturally homosexual. Strongly disagree. Like, homosexuality is a natural feeling just in the same way that heterosexuality is. You weren't taught to like, if you're a boy, you weren't taught to like girls. If you're a girl, you weren't taught to like boys. You like them because you were born that way. And if you're a guy and you like guys, or you're a girl and you like girls, you were born to feel that way. It's natural. Like, these things are natural. And the definition of natural is seen in nature, right? And there's plenty of animals in which engage in homosexual activity. So, I mean, it's absolutely natural. These days, openness about sex has gone too far. I can agree somewhat. Yeah. I don't think we should then just do the opposite and be like super closed off about sex, because again, there's plenty of data that the earlier you're introduced to sex education, the less likely you are to then be assaulted as an adult. So I think that there are some benefits to the openness, but then I do think obviously there's limits to that, as there is with pretty much anything in life. Let's see where I stand. Okay, authoritarian left, authoritarian right, libertarian left, libertarian right, North Korea, China, Saudi Arabia, Singapore, Uruguay, Switzerland. Where do you think I fall? I think I'm going to fall, like, I'm pointing at it like you're going to see. I think I'm going to fall, like somewhere around here, libertarian far left. My political compass Did I call it or did I call it? I'm just saying, right? I am pretty much all the way left economically, but pretty libertarian in terms of freedoms. And that's why I always try to tell people, again, libertarianism was really originally claimed by the socialists, and it's been taken by the right-wingers to where now libertarianism is so stupid because people try to be right-wing and libertarian, which, oh my God, makes really no sense. But yeah, so this is where I landed. Let me know where you landed in the comments. Again, thank you for 10,000 subscribers, and I hope you enjoyed the video.